Our story begins not with Wall Street, but with war. In the early 20th century, the world faced chaos, collapsing empires, unstable currencies, and nations desperate for funding. Out of this chaos, central banks emerged as the solution. Institutions like the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve, and later the European Central Bank promised stability. But stability came at a price: control. In 1913, the United States created the Federal Reserve, a move sold to the public as a way to prevent financial crises. What most didn't realize is that the Fed was not truly federal. It was a network of privately controlled regional banks, operating independently of direct democratic oversight. The principle was simple yet revolutionary. Money could now be created by decree, not by gold, not by labor, but by policy. This moment changed everything, because once governments realized they could borrow from tomorrow to pay for today, restraint vanished. Wars could be financed. Social programs expanded. Debt became the new engine of prosperity. But there was a catch, and central banks held the key. The genius of the system wasn't in creating money, it was in creating trust. Through the 20th century, nations abandoned gold. In 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement tried to anchor world currencies to the US dollar, which was still tied to gold. But by 1971, even that last link broke when President Nixon ended the gold standard. For the first time in history, money became nothing more than belief. And who controls belief? The central banks. From that moment forward, every dollar was born as debt. When a government borrows, the central bank creates money out of thin air and charges interest. That interest can only be paid with more borrowing. It's a perfect loop. And as globalization spread, this model infected the entire planet. The Bank of Japan, the European Central Bank, the People's Bank of China, all adopted versions of the same system. The result? A world where total global debt exceeds $300 trillion, while the global GDP is only a fraction of that. How does that math even work? It doesn't, and that's the point. By the 1980s, the trap was complete. Every financial crisis, every market crash, every recession became an opportunity for central banks to tighten their grip. When economies overheated, they raised interest rates to cool things down. When markets collapsed, they printed money to stimulate growth. They became both the arsonists and the firefighters. Then came 2008, the moment the illusion cracked. The global financial crisis revealed what insiders already knew. The system wasn't built to sustain itself, only to delay collapse. Trillions were printed to save the system, not for citizens, but for banks. Interest rates dropped to zero, and quantitative easing became the new normal. Money creation without limit. But if printing money could fix the economy, why not do it forever? Because each dollar created dilutes the value of the last one. Inflation quietly taxes the poor while inflating asset prices for the wealthy. The gap widens and the middle class disappears, not by accident, but by design. Today, the trap has evolved. We live in an economy where debt is wealth. Stock markets rise not because companies innovate, but because cheap money flows endlessly into them. Governments no longer worry about balancing budgets. They simply print, borrow, and repeat. And the average person? They're told to save, even as savings lose value every day. Here's a shocking reality. Since 1971, the US dollar has lost over 80% of its purchasing power. The European Union faces record-level debt-to-GDP ratios. Japan's central bank owns nearly half of its national bond market. We're witnessing the slow nationalization of the global economy, a financial system where markets aren't free, they're managed. And the more debt central banks buy, the more they own, not just in numbers, but in influence. They dictate interest rates, asset prices, even political choices. Every rescue package gives them more control. Every crisis becomes a stepping stone. And now a new weapon is emerging: digital currencies. Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, promise convenience and security, but they also offer something else: total surveillance. Every transaction tracked, every account programmable. Once again, it's sold as progress. But behind the polished language lies the same pattern: dependency disguised as innovation. Central banks claim they can control inflation, growth, and employment. Yet every solution creates a new problem. Interest rate hikes crush small businesses. Quantitative easing inflates housing prices. Stimulus packages devalue currencies. Each cure worsens the disease. We're now in what economists call the debt trap era. Governments can't raise rates without crashing their economies, but they can't print endlessly without destroying their currencies. It's the perfect paradox. And while politicians debate budgets, the true decisions happen behind closed doors. In policy meetings, central bank summits, and emergency interventions that reshape nations overnight. We no longer live in democracies guided by fiscal policy. We live in technocracies guided by monetary control. History shows this pattern over and over. Rome debased its coins to fund wars and collapsed under inflation. Weimar Germany printed money to escape debt and unleashed hyperinflation. Modern nations now repeat both mistakes, but on a global scale. The only difference is scale and speed. With digital systems, manipulation is instant, global, and invisible. We're watching the largest wealth transfer in history, from those who earn to those who issue, from workers to lenders, from the public to the printing press. And unless something changes, the global money trap becomes permanent. So what can we learn from this century-long trap? Takeaway 1, every boom and bust is engineered by the same mechanism. Debt creation disguised as growth. Takeaway 2, inflation isn't an accident. It's a hidden tax that redistributes wealth upward. Takeaway 3, the next evolution, digital currency, isn't about convenience. It's about control. The warning is simple. When money stops being real, power becomes everything. Because whoever controls the money controls the people. The story of central banks isn't just history, it's happening right now. Every policy, every crisis, every solution is another turn of the wheel. But awareness is the first step toward breaking free. If you found this video eye-opening, share it. Because the less people understand how money works, the easier it is for the system to continue. This is Money Exposed, and the deeper we dig, the clearer the picture becomes. The global money trap wasn't built overnight. It was engineered, quietly, deliberately, and it's still tightening its grip. Stay curious, stay informed, and never stop asking who really profits when money moves.